Lyme disease put me in the depths of hell, but I got well and I left it where it put me back in fucking hell. I had to completely retrain my way of thinking on things because I lived in fucking fear. I was in fear of the disease. What if I do get infected again? No. What if I do get infected? Maybe I will, but you know what I had to do? Okay. Instead of that scaring me and just fucking putting me in a panic, I said, well, I guess I know what to do, huh? What if it is just dormant? What if you didn't just eradicate it? Guess what? I know what the fuck to do. I am armed with my fucking tool bag with exactly what to do with the exact fucking protocol. And if it worked before, by God, it's going to work again. My friends, you can't live in fear. Hello, everyone. Janna here. Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk today about my journey with healing from chronic Lyme disease. If you've been listening to my podcast or you've read my book, my number one bestseller, Unfuck Your Mind, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? About, I guess, 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, I got very, very sick with Lyme disease. But I didn't know that's what it was. So it turned into chronic Lyme disease. And the Borrelia bacteria, that's the bacteria that causes Lyme, had infected my brain so bad, I had hellacious neurological symptoms. In fact, if someone was to say, like, look, if you could give a description of hell, what do you think it would be like? And I would describe exactly what it was like to have chronic Lyme disease. Exactly. You know, there are people suffering from chronic Lyme disease that, you know, the bacteria burrow themselves, they're little corkscrew shaped bacteria, they burrow themselves into their tissues, right? So maybe they can't walk, maybe they have to be in a wheelchair, whatever it is, maybe they're bedridden. The Borrelia bacteria got into my brain and I was so sick, so sick. And if for some reason you're new to this podcast, first of all, thank you. And you're just curious more about my journey with chronic Lyme disease, I'm not going to go into depth in all of that in this episode because it takes up a lot of time. Please go listen to some previous episodes, especially some of the first few where I discuss my journey with Lyme disease. You can also read a few articles on my website at Revived by Janna. And of course, if you want the most detail, then read my number one bestseller, Unfuck Your Mind, that came out last January. So I want to talk today about healing from chronic Lyme disease and the untold truth. You hear a lot of, negativity about Lyme disease. In fact, that was one of the things that kept me in that victim mindset when I was so sick, was just like, okay, there's no known cure, and what does help people or helps get rid of it doesn't work for everybody. And, it's just wish in one hand, shit in another, right? And there was a moment in my journey with Lyme disease where I realized all the negativity about it, everything I read about it, just what people said, it was making it worse for me. And I had a moment, it was a moment I almost took my own life, where I said, fuck you, Lyme. You took the wrong body. It's time to get the fuck out. In that moment, I decided to no longer listen to the naysayers, to no longer think that I couldn't heal myself 100%. I decided to believe in the absolute impossible. I had no reason to. I didn't have one minuscule of a reason to believe that I could get well. But I had a little bit of faith left. That little bit of faith, which I call my inner warrior, is what carried me through. But what really carried me through were my two small children. And, I had suffered a miscarriage. And my two oldest kids, now at the time I have three kids, my two oldest kids were very young at that time. And they were the reason that I decided to fight it. But that moment that I said, fuck you, Lyme, I didn't realize it at the time, but I went from a victim mindset to a victor mindset. And it also was, the journey that led me to discovering the power of mindset. Now, if you have been listening to my podcast, you've heard me say that every adversity that comes your way, we actually choose that before we're ever born. Before we're ever born, we choose what it is that we need to teach us, if we allow it to accomplish what it is we have not been able to accomplish in past lives. And we choose our parents, we choose adversities, and we're like, okay, if we do everything, if we listen, if we decide to learn from this, if we decide to approach this thing differently, we then are going to be elevated into our higher purpose. And I didn't know any of that then, but I've learned it since. And what I do know that I realized after I got well was that Lyme was no accident. It was always a part of my path in this life. What wasn't chosen for me was if I would get well. I had to choose it via free will. Everything that we choose to be an obstacle in our life, to be the hardship, the heartbreak, the loss, you name it, we did choose that before we came back into this earth. But we also knew there was a 50% chance that via free will that we would stay the victim mindset. And then we have to come back up to learn it again. So if you feel like you keep learning or having to not learn, but if you feel like you keep having to encounter the same problem, the same kind of situation, the same kind of toxic person in your life, that's because you're not learning the lesson. And that moment, that pivotal moment where you say, all right, there's something you're trying to teach me, universe. What is it? The universe answers in a split second, my friends. And if you know that, it really helps you get through life. It helps you get through the hard times because you got to have faith that, you know what? I trust my higher self. I've been there. So I'm getting a little off course on that, but I just kind of wanted you to know my thinking on it. I'll talk more about it in other episodes. I want to go back to the untold truth of chronic Lyme disease. So in that moment, right, I just remember thinking like, what would it be like to get well? I was so sick. I had been plagued with the god awful, the worst, hellacious symptoms from hell for 24/7 for over a year and a half with no reprieve. And I mean, no reprieve. If you're sick, let's say, now when I say sick, I'm talking about people with diseases, right? But let's say you get the common cold, you get the strep throat, right? Food poisoning, whatever it is. You feel like shit and it sucks, but you know what it's like to feel good. You know you're going to get well again. You know in a few days you're going to feel better. But most importantly, you know exactly what it's like to feel good, right? You can't wait to feel good again. My friends, I didn't have that. I was so very sick with Lyme disease, so infected. I had 8 different strands of it. I was so infected with it that I didn't remember what it was like to feel good. I didn't know if I ever would. I had derealization so bad, which by the way, is the most intense brain fog can get. And by the way, brain fog is simply inflammation in your brain. It was so bad. I lost my short-term memory. I can barely remember my long-term memories. I stuttered. I never stuttered in my life. And all of a sudden I would stutter. I had a full-on stutter. The depression that it gave me was no joke. anxiety, constant panic attacks, confusion, headaches. I just was very lost, very confused, very sick. Hell, half the time I didn't even know if I was really there. So to give you that description, now I want you to think about if you were that sick, wouldn't you imagine that if you got well, it would be the best fucking thing ever? I did too. I remember thinking, one day, I'm going to know what it's like to feel good again. And I just can't wait to embrace it. And I swore the moment that I got well, I was going to shout it out from the fucking rooftops. I was going to write a book and share what I did with the world to help other people. I did write a book. It was about 10 years later, but I wrote the book. So there was no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. I would be just screaming it to everybody that, hey, I'm well. That's not what happened. That's what I want to share with you right now. Another reason I described what it was like to be that sick. And I remember at the same time, I had 2 young kids, suffered a miscarriage, was also plagued with much, much more than Lyme disease. My thyroid stopped working. I had heavy metal toxicity. I had candida. I was severely anemic. My immune system was shot. Had Epstein-Barr, a heavy metal toxicity. I can keep going, but you get the drift. Well, I took essential oils to get well. I tried other things from the doctor, functional medicine, did the old doxy for a few months, did the Zane protocol, nothing. And the moment I realized I'm fucking dying, like I'm dying. I'm not going to see my children. I won't live another few months. I found essential oils and I learned about essential oils. And again, if you want to learn more about it, please tune in to other podcast episodes. Read my book. But I began to take essential oils because they don't kill off the good bacteria in your body. They actually can break through the biofilm that protects chronic Lyme disease. It's why Lyme disease becomes chronic, because the longer Lyme bacteria is in your body, it films a protective layer around it called the biofilm. Antibiotics can't break through that. So that's why they don't work. That's why many don't get well. So I learned and learned and learned. I'm a researcher. I love to research. This is also what led me on the journey, my friends, and not just becoming who and what I am today, but a nutritionist, mindset coach, health coach. And so I read about the essential oils and I was like, oh, all right, makes sense. They penetrate the blood-brain barrier. These certain ones break through the biofilm. These certain ones kill the Lyme disease. Now, I had to focus on my lymphatic system, which is your detoxification system. So again, I'm not going to go into that whole deal, but basically what started to happen is I started to get well. Thank God I prepped myself for the die-off, right? The die-off is when that biofilm bursts and all that bacteria inside of it just goes boom, and toxins, all the toxins that were in it, into your bloodstream. So everything that you were already feeling, how sick you were, multiply that times 10. So I go through this. I keep going through it. I'm like, oh, it's working. I had a die-off. The die-off ends. I'm better, felt better than I did before the die-off. So and so and so. My point is, again, I started to get better. And I was so grateful. I just kept on. I kept going. Then I learned about using food as medicine. With every bite of food, I'm either feeding a disease or fighting a disease. And I learned about the ketogenic diet, the true ketogenic diet, healthy fats, your body fuels off of ketones instead of glucose. And um, it's like, fats are like the burning coals, right, of a fire. They burn slowly. And when you don't eat any form of sugar, you don't feed that disease. Diseases need sugar to live. All diseases, no matter which one, they need sugar to live. Anything that you put into your body that you feel is not a sugar, like grains, okay, potatoes, high sugar fruits like bananas, grapes, red apples, those are sugar and or turn into sugar in your body because your body needs the glucose. Well, guess what? The bacteria or the disease, right? For me, it was Lyme. They need that. They need it to grow. They need it to multiply. So did all the other shit going on in my gut, right? Like candida overgrowth. So I didn't eat any form of sugar. I didn't have one fucking blueberry for 9 months. And when I incorporated that a few months into my protocol along with the essential oils, I had a major breakthrough. I started to get well fast. Then 4 months, the Lyme disease was completely eradicated from my body. I felt it. I felt it. My test results were getting better and better and better all around. 12 fucking test tubes of blood about at that. It went from once a month, every 2 months, every 3 months for years. Right? Doctors want to know, what'd you do to get well? Well, guess what? After I got well from Lyme disease, I wasn't perfect. Oh, hell no. I went from depersonalization to very intense brain fog to in the middle brain fog to mild brain fog. Because this wasn't just in 4 months I was well. In 4 months, Lyme disease was gone. When Lyme disease was gone, then I had to work on healing my gut. And then I was like, fuck that. If I got rid of Lyme disease, I can heal my thyroid. Doctor's like, you can't heal your thyroid. You're going to take that pill every day for the rest of your life. I was severely hypothyroidism. I was on like 3 grains of Nature-Throid. That's a lot. I was like, nope. Anyone tells me what I can't do, I'm doing it. I healed my gut. And when I healed my gut, I healed my brain. The inflammation was gone. The brain fog was gone. I healed my gut. I healed my body. I healed my thyroid. I haven't touched or taken or needed thyroid medication in 10 years. My test results are perfect. And as I got well, I like really got well. And I mean like actually just well. There was nothing left in my body that was wreaking havoc. This is right here what I want to get to, the meat of it. I was scared. The untold truth about healing from Lyme disease is when you do heal, you live in fear. There was a little PTSD. I realized how in fear I was of it coming back. Well, what if some of these people are right that it can't be eradicated from your body? It just goes dormant. What if they're right? I was like, hey, Janna, you can't live your life like that. Those are the same people you chose to ignore. And look at you. You got well. Look at you. The doctors want to know what you did. You did it. But I lived in fear. I remember one time, a few years after I got well, there was a tick. I found a tick on one of my kids. It sent me into a full-blown panic attack. I lived in fear of Lyme disease. Anytime I got sick, a cold, strep throat, just the run-of-the-mill virus that goes around, which I get those anytime my kids are sick. It was absolute hell for me. I would go in full-blown panic. What if I don't get well again? I'm like, God, Janna, it's a cold, girlfriend. Didn't matter, my friends. The untold truth of healing from Lyme disease is that fucking disease haunts you. It haunts you. That disease is fucking evil. I wrote in my book, and I've also shared this on my Instagram social media where I'm the most active, that Lyme disease put me in the depths of hell. But I got well and I left it where it put me back in fucking hell. I had to completely retrain my way of thinking on things because I lived in fucking fear. I was in fear of the disease. What if I do get infected again? No. What if I do get infected? Maybe I will, but you know what I had to do? Okay. Instead of that scaring me and just fucking putting me in a panic, I said, well, I guess I know what to do, huh? What if it is just dormant? What if you didn't just eradicate it? Guess what? I know what the fuck to do. I am armed with in my fucking tool bag with exactly what to do with the exact fucking protocol. And if it worked before, by God, it's going to work again. My friends, you can't live in fear. How I thought I would celebrate getting well from Lyme disease, I didn't. I didn't shout it out. I was terrified to tell people. Yeah, I'm down. I'm getting better. Yeah. So much better. Yep, I feel like myself again. That's what I would say. Not many people I told. I was terrified. What if it comes back? What if it does? Well, I had to do a lot of soul searching on it because, like I said, it took me a little bit, over a year, maybe or more, after I got completely well from not just Lyme disease, but all that shit that was making me sick. When I felt, and by the way, when I did get well, not only did I feel what you would say normal, but I felt better than I ever did my entire life. I ate better. I knew more about the human body than I ever knew before. I understood disease. I understood the way all the mechanisms in our body work, the way food is, the way our body needs fuel. I learned about sleep habits. I learned about essential oils. I learned about supplements out the fucking wazoo. This was before I was a nutritionist. I learned what it took mentally. I knew what it was then like to live with such severe fucking inflammation of the brain that the brain fog made you think that you weren't even really fucking alive. I knew what it was fucking like to be on an overpass and want to just veer off. Because if I veer off, I can just fucking end it. I can end the fucking pain. But I didn't want to hurt anyone else. I knew what it was like to drive home and not even remember where the fuck I lived, my address. I couldn't remember my kids' fucking names. I knew what it was like. I knew that there was something out there that could make you so fucking sick and make you feel that way. I didn't know. I didn't know the human body could turn on itself like that. I didn't know. I learned so fucking much. And I had to think about that for a long time. I became grateful for it. And it was in me learning. Maybe this was sent to me for a reason. It was over 4 years after I got well, I could even talk about it and share my story. At that time, I put myself into health coaching school. Then I wanted to be a nutritional therapy functional practitioner. And then I went through the absolute unthinkable in my last marriage, the ultimate betrayal, the heartbreak, the lies, the narcissistic abuse. And I thought Lyme disease was the worst thing I'd ever experienced, but it wasn't. Lyme disease didn't rip my fucking heart out and run over it and break it into a million fucking pieces in front of me. Lyme disease didn't rip my kids from me 50% of the time. Lyme disease didn't break me. But there's a beautiful thing about getting completely broken. You actually get to decide how you want to put yourself back together again. I thought that Lyme disease would be the worst thing that not only happened to me, but that there's no way the universe is going to give me anything else. And it did. And it's going to again. But I got my tool bag next to me, and my tool bag has my resilience. It has my inner warrior. It has a fucking hardcore ironclad mindset. It's got a whole lot of faith. My friends, you gotta sometimes believe in yourself, and you've got to believe in the unknown, and you got to believe in the impossible, and you got to know things aren't just always going to work out the way you think they are. And sometimes we got to let go of what we think that is. So Lyme disease was absolutely brutal, but the moment I allowed for it to be my teacher, it did. And I think that that's why I got well as fast as I did. If you're suffering from chronic Lyme disease right now, please read my book. Follow me on Instagram. Send me a DM. I'm not really good at responding on the YouTube stuff. I'm sorry. I try. But Instagram DMs will be the best way to get a hold of me, or just email me. But if you are suffering from just any disease, chronic Lyme disease, you can get fucking well. But you got to believe that. Look, when I was sick, I wanted to get well. When I was in the victim mindset, when I had chronic Lyme disease, I wanted to get well. Of course I fucking did. But I didn't believe it. I wanted to, but will I? I'm scared. That's not believing. Believing is, I'm going to get fucking well. I know I am. And you know what? With whatever disease or illness you're dealing with, it's time you look in the mirror and you say, fuck you, disease. Fuck you. You took over the wrong body, and it's time to get the motherfuck out. My friends, you are in control of your life. You got the paintbrush. You got the canvas. You have the pen to your own book. Start writing it the way that you want it. Thank you all for tuning in. Please share this with anyone you think it would help. Love you all.